I wanted to shoot this quick video for you guys on how to use Propstream. First of all, Propstream is basically like a third-party service where you pay $99 a month. They have like a 1 week or a 2 week trial. It's similar to batch leads. You could try both of them out and then decide which one you like. Just make sure you cut it off before the trial if it's one that you're not going to go with. But you got both options. But I'm going to show you about how Propstream works today. This is mostly for a lot of you guys that might want to do some virtual wholesaling. What do I mean by virtual wholesaling? When I say virtual wholesaling, I'm referring to the wholesaling in markets that aren't in your backyard. Even though I'd recommend if you're first starting out to stay in your backyard, but you don't necessarily have to. You can let's say you wanted to go look in excuse me, I just ate. You wanted to go in on North Carolina. It's the other market I work in and I've done deals in besides Connecticut. So let's say you wanted to get into the North Carolina market, for example. You want to, you're not obviously not in North Carolina. Let's say you're in another state, whether it be Connecticut or just somewhere that's not North Carolina, but you want to work in a North Carolina market because it's very investor friendly. It's growing. A lot of people from the north are moving down to places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia's. Those places are growing because the cost of living is a lot more economical than here. You get a lot more bang for your buck. So there's a lot of growth going on in those places. So let's just make believe North Carolina was the market, Greensboro was the market you wanted to get into. What you want to do is you want to go in here, right? And you want to pull a list, right? Basically, you're going to pull a list so that you can go ahead and skip trace that list over here on Fiverr, like I told you guys, or a place like REI Skip, which is actually a paid service, or the free services that I mentioned, like Fast People Search and True People Search, right? FastPeopleSearch.com, that is, and TruePeopleSearch.com. So those, you want to start off with those if you want to save a couple dollars, because those are free. And Fiverr, you got to pay. And I remember what I told you on Fiverr, go for people who have high ratings, 4.9 or 5.0, but also have done over 100 transactions. And then REI Skip is another one. It's a paid service. So you could these two are paid, Fiverr and REI Skip. There's many others out there, but for purposes of this video, I'm just going to use, these are the two that I've used for paid services. And then the FastPeopleSearch.com and True People Search are the ones that are free. So let's make believe we're going on here. We want to, you can pull a list of vacant, vacant properties with liens. You can pull a list of pre-foreclosures, properties that are going to auction, bank-owned properties, cash buyers. That's not to sellers. That's basically if you had a property under contract and you were looking to see who may have bought cash in the area that you have a property under contract, you can call in here and cash buyers and you can pull a list. High equity is people that have a lot of equity in their property, meaning that they don't own the bank much on their property. The majority, they have high equity, meaning they have a very small balance with a lender. Free and clear means they don't have any balance at all. They own the house outright. So you can pull a list of homeowners who own their property free and clear, which means they have 100% equity, which means that they're more likely to be able to wholesale if that's what you're trying to do, because they don't owe a mortgage. They own it outright. So there's more room for negotiation there, and they have more room to play with as far as negotiating. Then you have bankruptcy. And let me mention too, in some of these markets, you might like go in bankruptcy and you might not see, well, in this case you do. But let's say if I go into Hartford, Connecticut, and whoops, why is that doing that? Okay, Hartford. See, only like 21 show up, but sometimes you'll see nothing show up at all. So take into consideration also, sometimes this information on these sites can be a little outdated, meaning you might go into pre-foreclosures, right? And there might not, some of these properties are no longer in pre-foreclosure. They actually got foreclosed on already. They're past that process. And let's see. Now, let's go back to North Carolina just for purposes of the video. Greensboro, North Carolina. So we'll go back in here, quick list search, and then we were at bankruptcy. You could get a list of the people that are in divorce, because sometimes when people are getting divorced, they have to sell some of their assets, and a lot of times their home is one of their assets. tax delinquencies, people who are behind on taxes. They might owe property taxes on the property. Flippers, this is people who buy properties to fix and flip them. You might want to reach out to some of these people after you have a property under contract and see if they're looking for their next flip. Failed listings are people who have put their property on the MLS, but it didn't sell, and they took it off, so that would be considered a failed listing. You have senior owners here, people who are over a certain age. I'm assuming it's probably like over 55, 60, maybe even older, but basically people that are a bit older. Vacant land is obvious, land that doesn't have any house on it or anything. It's just a lot. And you have tired landlords. I'm not sure of the exact criteria that they use for tired landlords, but you could always test that out. Pull a list of tired landlords. Well, in this case, there's 24,062. So I'm really curious to know what criteria they use. That's a pretty big list, especially just for Greensboro. But anyway, if you do have a list that big, right, and maybe you don't want to export 24,000, um, property records, because it's not really necessary. That'll take you a long time to get through that. You want to take like bite-sized pieces. You don't want to overwhelm yourself and pull a list of 24,000 property records. It's not really necessary. So, but you would be able to filter this and pick which pages you want. So, and you could just play with it up here. Let's say you just want the first 1,000, so you put 1,000 there, and then you would. Oh, let me hit this show. So you see the first 1,000 of the 24,062, rather than seeing all of them, right? So that is for what's that? That was tire landlords. So yeah, you can pick however many you want. I would start with a list of like 500 if you're gonna pull a list from here. 1,000 maybe 1,000. Start with 1,000, and then what you're gonna do is once you pull the list in here, you're gonna export it into a CSV file. And then once you exported it out of here, like first you pick the ones you want, you hit add to list. You can name your list here, create new, name the list whatever you want, you know, name it whatever, and then you just hit save. And then once you have it saved in here, you're able to export it. So that way you can send it to somebody on Fiverr to skip trace it for you. Once they skip trace it for you, they're going to send you back the same file you sent them, but they're going to send it back with the phone numbers. So now you can take those phone numbers and you can call these people. You can use a service like Smart or Contact if you want to text them, or there's several other services out there. I'm just letting you know that's who I've used in the past, the Smart or Contact. Let me actually show you their site. Go on their website and check them out. And you can see their pricing. They have different plans. You can start with the smallest one if you want to. And then you can send text messages to them. And then you can call, you just on your phone, just regular cell phone, one by one. It might take you a little while, but it's fine because it won't cost you much. Or you can use a dialer like IQ Dial. This is one that is, why is it doing that? Oh, whoops, I'm missing a letter. I said iDial. So IQ Dial, there's several other dialers out there, so I don't want to confuse you guys. This is one of them that is it's only $50 a month. You can use one like Batch Dialer to call these people, and this one's a little pricier. I believe Batch is like 90, or let's see, yeah, $89 for one line. So I'd recommend if you're tight on budget, just go to IQ Dial. That's the one I use. I've had $49 a month. See, so this is a good one. But it's up to you. You can pick which one you like. But yeah, so you pull the list from here after you skip trace it, then you're gonna call them on your regular phone or using a dialer. And then if you have a little bit more of a budget, you can text them. But if calling is good enough if you're on a tight budget right now. But let's get back to what else Propstream could do. So you see these are quick lists, right? What I showed you. And you have zombie properties, which is probably properties that just been vacant for a very long time. Let's see what we got here. 11 of them. Okay, that's in Greensboro. I'm in the Greensboro section, North Carolina right now. Then you got pre-probate, people that might have owned the property, they passed away, and now it's going through the probate process. These are good too because these people have to sell. I've actually, most of my North Carolina deals were probate deals actually. So you might want to pull a list of pre-probates, but just remember you're not actually talking to the owner. You're talking to somebody who inherited the property. And the good thing about these probates is that the people that inherited the property, a lot of times, they don't have any like emotional attachment to the property because it's not really theirs. In some cases, they might, like if they grew up in the house, like their mom passed away and they grew up in the house, it might have some sentimental value to them. But a lot of times, it's typically not the case. It's where they don't really care about the property. They're just like, give me some money and just take this off my hands. So pre-probates is definitely one that I would put a list from. And remember, like I mentioned a little earlier, some of this data can be a little bit off because if I'm not mistaken, Propstream updates their stuff like every 3 to 4 months. But then again, I'm not 100% sure about that because they've switched hands recently. The person that originally owned Propstream, I believe, sold it to another company. So these are just quick lists that you can pull. What you can also do though is there's different let's just say you wanted to pick the vacant properties, right? Whoops, vacant property. There we go. Vacant properties, right? You got 2,600 of them. Well, you can use these filters over here too. So let's say you wanted the vacant property owners that were absentee owners. So you'd hit no here. What does absentee owner mean? Absentee owner means somebody who owns a property but does not live in it, right? Or it's not their, it isn't their main, it isn't their where, yeah, it isn't their main address, like where they reside. So that'll make the list a little smaller. Then you could see, obviously these are already, it's a vacant list, so we're not going to touch that. Um, let's say you just wanted properties that were single family houses. You weren't targeting any multis. So you see how the list shrunk even more? You can do that. Let's say you don't want single families. You're looking for multis that are 2 to 4 units. And you can do that. You see how I got a lot smaller, right? Or let's say you just wanted bigger multis that are five doors or more and vacant. So in this case, this list is vacant properties that are over 5 units in Greensboro, right? That's too much. That's a pretty small list, right? So let's just go back to our list. And then let's say you were just looking for properties that are only 3 bedrooms. And you had a cash buyer who says, hey, I'm looking for properties that are 3 bedrooms or more. So you can put that filter in there, for example, so that you're only getting properties that are 3 bedrooms. Square footage, the year built. You might run into some buyers like hedge funds who don't like properties like older than 1960, for example. So you can put 1960 in here. So then that way, when you're pulling your list, and let's say you're one of your main buyers is a hedge fund, and they told you specifically in their buy box is another word for the type of properties that somebody might want, one of your end buyers might want. And let's say part of their buy box is we only want houses that are 3 bedrooms and up, and they were built in 1960. So then you would put those filters in here. You see how the list got a lot smaller from over 2000 to 414. So let's see what other filters. Lot size, bathrooms. So you have a bunch of these different here. MLS status. If you want properties that are on market, you can hit this. But typically we're on here targeting properties that are off market because if you wanted properties that were on market, then you could just go to Zillow.com and see all of those, right? So we want to mostly target off-market properties when we're using Propstream because you can just get that information elsewhere. MLS status, if it's active, pending, contingent, if it's a failed listing, if it's already sold. You can target stuff by days on market. But I wouldn't really play with this MLS feature too much. Like I said, if you're looking and you're going after MLS properties, just go on Zillow. It's going to have the most accurate information. And that way, you're not over here finding some properties that are outdated, meaning the data is outdated, where it might have sold already, but yet it's still showing up on here. So just go to Zillow for those. Then you have a pre-foreclosed and bank owned. So they have notice of list pendants. These are the different points in the foreclosure process that you can target properties. We're just taking into consideration sometimes this data is a few months old or it's not 100% accurate yet, right? Then what else? We got ownership info. Let's say I want to go after owners who have, in this case, you see it says vacant up there. They have a vacant property, 3 or more bedrooms. It's not on market, it's off market, But on top of it, I want to make sure that they own the property for 10 years or longer, let's just say. So now you see how the list gets longer. So now this list right here you're seeing is owners in Greensboro, North Carolina, who don't live in the property. They didn't live in the property. If, vacant, three or more bedrooms. It's not on market, and they've owned these properties for 10 years or more, which means they might have some equity, right? Which is what you're after if you're trying to wholesale. But remember, you can wholesale other deals as well. Properties like, well, obviously a property that has that's free and clear because that has 100% equity. But even some properties where the numbers are a little tighter, what we call skinny deals, that's where Peter is an expert at. And you guys could feel free to definitely reach out to him if you come across any skinny deals whatsoever, meaning there's not a whole lot of equity there. Maybe somebody's behind on their payments. Let's say hypothetically speaking, the house is worth $100,000 and they owe the bank $90,000, and they might be behind on some payments. They're about to foreclose. They just don't have enough equity to sell it with a realtor because there's closing costs involved. So the numbers might be tight. They might actually have to come out of the pocket to pay the realtor, which people don't want to do that, right? To sell this house. So basically, there's not a lot of equity there. That's why we call them a skinny deal. So these are deals where Peter is an expert at. He knows how to take these down, whether he needs to owner finance, not owner financing. We're not really with a wrap. I don't want to confuse you guys with all that. He can do them subject to is one of the main ways that he would do that, as well as some of these properties that really have no equity, where they might owe the bank more than what the property is actually worth. We refer to that as underwater. And basically, Peter's also an expert at that, the short selling. He's the one you want to reach out to for that. I don't really know too many people, honestly, that know more than he does when it comes to these creative ways. He's he's really something else. So take advantage of him because you don't run across people like him every day. So definitely take advantage of him if you come across any of these skinny deals, and you can still get paid an assignment. There's still money to be made with these deals, even if there's not a lot of equity. You just got to be creative, and he's the one who can help you how to get very creative with these deals. There might be a deal where you think there's nothing there, and there's no way you can help the seller, and there's no way you can make any money, but he'll find a way. And then let's say you want to find a seller who owns 5 or more properties on top of that. This might be an investor. Maybe he's looking to get rid of some of his properties because some of them are headache properties for him or her, right? So now you got here owners in Greensboro who are absentee owners. Basically, when it's not owner occupied, we call that absentee owned. It's vacant, has 3 or more bedrooms. It's not on market, and they've owned it for over 10 years, but they have 5 or more properties. So these are people that are most likely investors, or they might be mom and pop like investors. And you could reach out to them because they have multiple properties. And more than likely, 1 or 2 of them might be giving them a headache. Who knows? Or maybe not. But there's a chance there that the more properties they have, the likelihood of them having one that's a problem property is higher. And that's where we come into play because we're problem solvers, right? And then you got properties here, liens, bankruptcy, divorce status. Once again, you can check what type of liens: the tax lien, HOA lien, mechanics lien. Mechanics lien is like, let's say somebody had work done on their house and they didn't pay the HVAC guy or the contractor, whatever the case may be. Those people can put a mechanics lien on those properties. So you'll know if there's that type of lien, utility lien, maybe the utility company, they owe money to them, they put liens on property. Sometimes somebody got solar put on their property and they haven't been paying, the solar company could put a lien on them. Child support lien, if people owe child support, there's a lien could be put on their property. And then there's a bunch of other types of liens, so you could hit other. And then you can go by like the lien amount. Like if you want to see people who have a lien of $1,000 or more, hypothetically speaking, then you can do that as well, right? Tax delinquent year since, like, if you want people that were tax delinquent since, I don't know, 2016, you put that in there. Or if you just want to see people who are tax delinquent in the last 3 years, you could put 2018. So you could play with those settings. I really wouldn't get too involved with these. I typically would just pay attention to the the absentee owner, vacant. In this case, I wouldn't even target bedrooms. Like I said, I'll just use that example because if you might have specific buyers who only buy 3 or more bedrooms, so that's where you would put that in this filter. And then equity info, like I mentioned earlier, people would, why isn't it scrolling up? It's cutting off. I can't get this whole, I don't know why it doesn't fit all the way on there. But anyway, and then more mortgage information, properties that have X amount of mortgage. Like I said, I really wouldn't get too involved in these because once you get too specific and you have a bunch of filters here, your list shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So you want to have a decent size list. You don't really need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you wouldn't really need like 6 filters. I would probably just play with like 3 filters most of the time. And that's pretty much how that works. Now, let's say I'm mostly talking about how to pull lists so that you can reach out to homeowners and see who might want to sell. And then you can ask them the 4 questions that I mentioned in earlier videos, like what to say to a seller or what questions to ask the seller, excuse me. But this would be to pull data to find sellers or homeowners. And then, like I said, you're going to skip trace the list that you pull. That way you can call them or text them. And then let's say you do have a property under contract and you're looking for cash buyers. You can look in the group to see if anybody in the group might be a cash buyer. You can also go in here and hit cash buyers. So then you can see, let me erase these filters real quick. Let's put cash buyers in North Carolina, right? And then in this case, we want to see people that have been buying lately because we don't really care too much about people that were buying, years ago or, a while back, but they're not buying today. So for cash buyers, we'd want to go and, years of ownership, maybe put max 1 year. So then you'll find all these people bought within the last year, right? And they paid cash. So these might be some people that you might want to reach out to. And then you could always shrink the list too, You want to do last sale date, even whatever, in November right now. Let's say you want to just know people that were cash buyers and bought in the last 6 months or so, or 4 months or so, or since August, let's just say, which is, what's that, 4 or 5 months. So basically all these people are cash buyers that bought since August 1st in North Carolina, right? So let's say you had a property on one of these streets, you can reach out, to somebody who bought something in that area, right? And once again, you could play with the filters if you want to shrink the list down. But the best way to find out, like, let's just say 261, let's go this property. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, right? You had this property under contract, and you had this property under contract, right? And you wanted to find out people that were cash buyers, like next to this property, right? So you could go, actually, where's it at? Let me see. No, I made a mistake there. Let's see. So yeah, let's say this is a property you have under contract. It's 4 bed, 3 baths, right? So and this is in Greensboro. You want to find a cash buyer for this property. Like, let's just make believe you have this under contract, right? So, and you can go in here and find, cash buyers that bought, what is that? It left. Let's just say property characters. You go in here and just put however many beds and baths your property is that you have under contract and see what other properties have sold in that area that are similar to your property. So let's say that you have a single family under contract and it has 3 bedrooms, right? Well, you can see that these are the cash buyers that have bought a single family 3 bedroom. But once again, this list is huge, right? So let's go after, wow, that's funny, 807. That's a deal I did. You can go cash buyer, single family, 3 or more. And that's too big of a list. Let's say maybe you want, your hedge fund says, I want 3 bedrooms and I need 2 baths minimum. So that'll shrink the list even more. But let's say more specifically, as I mentioned, we want to find out people that are currently buying. We don't care about the guy who bought 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago who's not buying today. Because remember, our main way of disposing these properties is to find cash buyers. And we want to find cash buyers that are currently still buying. So we would go into ownership info. Let's see, last sale day, right? So we're gonna see who bought since August 1st. So now see how it shrunk a whole lot. You got 153 properties here. So now you got a better idea. All these people bought within the last 5 months. If you want to shrink it even more, because there might be people right now that aren't buying because August was a lot hotter than it is right now, the market. So some of those people that were buying then are not buying now. Some of them who were buying then are still buying now. But let's just assume we want to get, a clearer picture. We want somebody who's been buying, since let's go back 1 month because that's too soon. That's only been a month ago. Since September 1st, right? See, I got smaller. I went from 150 something to 71. So now we can really focus on these guys because these guys are still buying or bought as of recent. We don't know if they're still buying, but there's a better chance that they might still be buying. So we can reach out to them and see, hey, Mister, I see you bought 614 Holt Ave. I have another similar property that's also 3 beds, 2 baths, and it's you know 2 blocks away. Let's assume. I was just calling to see if you're still, if you're still buying in the area because I have a similar property to the one you bought on Holt Ave. Are you still buying? And then that's pretty much how that conversation would start, right? So let's see what else I should mention. Um, that's pretty much it. And then when you have this, any list you pull would be under my properties. They have skip tracing inside of Propstream. I personally never used it. I haven't heard good things about it. And I heard it's a little pricier than your average, which I'm not exactly sure how much. But yeah, I usually just play in the search area and the my properties, saving any properties that I might download. Like if I pull a list, it'll be any list you pull will be saved under my properties. So basically, Propstream with an account Propstream, you get 10,000 property records that you can pull per month, which is a lot, a lot, a lot. For so you guys starting out and you're by yourself, that's way more than enough records to pull. Now, if you had employees and you had a team calling, then maybe you might be able to run through 10,000 property records in a month. If you had a couple of VAs calling on your behalf or a couple of acquisitionists. But if it's just you like by yourself right now, starting out, just try to pull a list like 1,000 at a time. Get through that list before you pull another list. And I really want to stress before you start pulling a bunch of lists, this is one of the biggest mistakes people make. And I made the mistake myself starting out. So I can tell you firsthand, I've made this mistake and people are still making it all the time. When you pull a list from Propstream or Batch or whatever provider you plan on using, by the way, Batch and Propstream are not the only ones. There's Freedom Soft. There's a few more out there. I have personally never used those. I've only used Batch and Propstream, and mostly Propstream to be honest with you. So basically, when you pull a list from here and you skip trace that list, make sure that you exhaust that list and that you've called every number on that list at least 3 times minimum. And you really exhausted it and you know that you've called everybody on that list before you say, oh, you know what, this list sucks, this list isn't good, it's not working, there's no sellers on here, there's no motivated sellers. Before you do that and decide that the list is a problem, make sure that you've exhausted the list and that you've called several times or text or sent mail or whatever you plan on doing. I would stick to calling to start out because it's the most inexpensive and it works as long as you're consistent with it. So don't get on a frenzy and just start pulling all types of lists and it's just pointless. Just start with 1,000 or 500. Make sure you call that list several times, and then you might want to pull another list. And then make sure you have some type of spreadsheet. If you don't have a big budget right now, get like a Google spreadsheet, and you can anybody you do call that says that they might be interested in selling, make sure you're on your spreadsheet. You can have the address, the owner's name, phone number, and then you could in another box you can write some notes like owner said they're not interested in selling right now, but told me to follow back in the spring because they might be interested in selling in the spring, right? So if you do have a little bit more money, then you might want to get a CRM system like RE Simply or REI Reply. Those are the two that I've used. Once again, there's several other providers out there, but the only two that I personally have experience with are those, right? You could also save them in here, under contacts. So if you make some calls and you have somebody's interested, you could put them in here and save them if you like. But I'd rather, it's better off to just have a CRM separate from this, whether it's a Google spreadsheet or you're using something like iReply or iReSimply. But that's about it. That's what I have for you guys today for Propstream. So for some of you guys that don't want to, work directly in your market, even if you're in Connecticut and you're working in the Connecticut market, you'll still be able to use Propstream to pull lists. But if you want to work in another market, you can definitely do that. People do this all the time and put properties under contract without seeing them in other states. Because remember, when you're talking to the seller, you can ask them different questions about the property as far as repairs and stuff go. You could also ask for pictures. If you have somebody in that area, you can have them go there and take pictures for you. You can always put an ad on Craigslist and have somebody go to the property and take pictures for you. So, and then you send in the contract, like the contract we have inside the Facebook group. You can send that same contract digitally using something like DocuSign. Let's see. DocuSign. You could use this and you could upload the contract in here and send the contract to them in an email and they could sign it right over email. So there's a lot of people that do virtual wholesaling where they live in one state and they're targeting deals in an entirely different state and never even go to the property whatsoever, lock it up over the phone, send the contract DocuSign, and then they go on and wholesale it or assign that contract to an end investor. And even if they don't live in that state, they can literally just go in here and find some cash buyers, or you can join different groups online. There's a lot of different groups online. So that's pretty much it about Propstream. To give you the basics on how that works. So feel free to ask any questions if you want to know more about Propstream, or if you have any questions regarding skinny deals or deals with a lot of equity, whatever the case may be. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day, you guys.